Am I shitting? It feels like I'm shitting.
Welcome, everyone, to the Comicsology Club. It's a podcast where I, Snoop Lynch, and my co-host, Higgins Sturm.
Hey, that's me.
He is right there for episode 40.
Jesus Christ.
I know, it's like we've been doing this for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, at least 3 and some change years, I think.
I mean, it's at least longer than like a week, right?
Yeah, this is by and far the longest commitment I've ever had.
Just like in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. It might be. We'll see. I mean, we'll potentially be doing this till the day we die, or until we get famous and we can retire on all that podcast money, Higgins.
God, can't we dream?
We can, and we can also podcast. What do we podcast about, Higgins?
God, we talk about comics, we drink drinks, and we hang out with friends. Specifically you and me.
Yeah, it's mostly
in a
us.
room by ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, every now and
again.
again.
And the occasional guest.
Yeah, that's what I say. Every now and again, we set up a third table right here. They can look at both of us equally.
Yeah.
They don't have to.
When we have video, this will be real good.
Oh my gosh, we were just talking about the video thing. It's going to involve 2 cameras, maybe 1, maybe 2. Some puppets. It's a whole thing. We'll talk about it another day. For right now, though, let's do things a little differently. We talked about a book last month. That was a Spider-Man book, I remember. We had a good time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was a good time.
But we took like 40 minutes to talk about the drink. I don't want that to happen again because I've got a lot to say about the book. So if you don't mind, can you tell me about the drink we're drinking?
You want to knock it out real quick?
Yeah, let's go ahead and knock it out.
All right, so I picked this drink specifically. I had a tough time searching for the Google Saga cocktail, so I did some deep dives, and I found our author, Brian K. Vaughan, and he says his favorite liquor, or favorite cocktail is gin and water. And I was like, I think we can do better than that. And we've been going on a trend here lately where we have picked very good books and like very good drinks to match it, some classics. I'd like to keep on this trend where we do some classic drinks here in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they don't match the book as well, but I mean, we're a cocktail podcast as much as a comic book podcast, so we need to hit the heavy hitters.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went with your classic gin martini. And let me tell you guys, the people that drink this hate themselves.
I hate myself right now.
I mean, as far as things go, I'm not gonna spit it out. I'm gonna finish the whole thing. It'll be good. It looks classy as hell in these glasses we got.
I know we haven't cracked these bad boys open in maybe a year.
Yeah, for sure. Last time we had the worst drink we've ever made on this podcast. Maybe not even
drink. Okay,
the melon martini.
Yeah, you're right.
Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the classic martini, at least the recipe that I followed, you go for about 2.5 parts gin. I think it was like a half part dry vermouth or to taste, depending on what you want in there. I have no idea, so I just did what the recipe told me. And then there was a dash of bitters. It said you could use orange or aromatic bitters, depending on your garnish. And for our garnish, because we're garnishing the hell out of our drinks these days, boys and girls, we used a little olive. We used an olive. And I learned from the internet that I was either supposed to do 1 olive or 3 olives, because apparently 2 olives is unlucky. And I'm not trying to curse this podcast. We're doing so god dang well right now. So I put 1 in there because there's some pretty big olives, and I don't think 3 would have fit on the toothpick, Snoop said.
So wait, you're saying that 2 is bad?
Apparently an even number of olives is like bad luck in the mixology world.
Yeah.
And like here I am learning as much as you guys are, right with you.
It's wonderful to go down this journey with you, Higgins.
Slightly before you guys hear this.
Yeah. It's slightly before I get a little too loose to remember that fact.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Thank you. Glad we did the drink first.
It looks so good though. Like by far one of the best looking drinks we've had.
I think that's mostly the glass.
Glass, garnish.
The garnish is nice, yeah.
I might not go with bitters next time because it doesn't look like your standard martini, but
I don't know if I appreciate the color of the
orange hue.
Yeah, it's
That's
like a
the
clear
bitters.
orange.
That's the bitters for sure.
It's like after like a long night of drinking, and then you go to piss the next day, and you're like,
Yep.
That's darker. That's probably darker than it should be.
Every drink just goes straight through my nostrils after I'm done with it.
I mean, this drink definitely clears up my sinuses. You made us a double this first round.
Yeah, because, I mean, normally we sit here for like 20 minutes and then we already need another. So I was like, let's just maybe make it through the episode without needing a refresher. But
Yeah.
we'll leave that up to the record.
That's the same mentality you had that one time we did Wanted, and then we had to re-record.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. Sounds good. Sounds like a good time.
Well, I'd love to re-record about this book. The book we're
I could
specifically talking about Higgins
Literally talk about this book
all day.
all day.
And here we go. So we are talking about Saga,
Saga.
Volume 1. Now, you'd think Higgins, because we've done a lot of Volume 1s, maybe a Volume 2 at some point, I don't remember. But each of these volumes, they have their own name, right?
Yes.
Typically. Well, I tried to find the name on this. Turns out
No.
the name is just Saga Volume 1.
Hell yes.
Do you know why that is?
No.
Okay, well, I could tell you.
There's a reason.
There is a reason. There's
Oh,
a
that's
reason for
awesome.
everything in this book.
What did Brian K. Vaughan say about why he decided to name it that?
Well, he didn't like say anything specifically about why he decided to name it that. Is more why he decided not to name it anything. And so this has been going since 2012. That's when these first 6 issues we're going to talk about today came out. And the intention was always to have, I believe, 108 issues. It's still going as of time of recording. It just came back after like a 2 or 3 year hiatus.
Yeah, this guy's working on a lot of projects, so I understand it.
I think there was a bit of he just needed a break from this one because he
Yeah.
does this. He writes on this, and the fellow co-creator / artist of this is a woman by the name of Fiona Staples. And I think they were just kind of this came out monthly, and it does come out monthly now. But I think they needed a break just to be with their family, and that
Yeah.
makes sense. I mean, this book is all about family, so it makes sense they want to kind of spend some time with their own actual family
yeah.
in real life. I didn't appreciate it at the time because I loved
Burned
this
through it,
story
yeah.
and I needed more. I haven't gotten back into it, but I was excited to get back into these first 6 again. And the reason that he names each of these just Volume 1, Volume 2, and so on, I think there at this time there's maybe about like 11 or 10 volumes out. It's to kind of cement that fact that in a lot of comics, arcs are broken up into these volumes, and while each arc can progress the overall narrative, they do function very kind of individually. I think a lot of that is kind of done on purpose to draw people in and out, just kind of, I want to be able to jump into a story, read about it. I don't need to go back or keep reading if I don't want to. But with this story, it's one long, intentional narrative with little adventures kind of sprinkled in is the idea. So by, I think, naming it each Volume 1, Volume 2, and then you can break it down even further where the issue names themselves are just called chapters. This is supposed to work like a novel in a
Yeah.
comic medium. And when this is all said and done, when all 108 issues are out and published, he wants you to be able to go in and just read this as one long story and feel that way. And I think for the most part, getting to the end of the 6th issue, the 6th chapter, I see that now
Oh yeah,
reading it a second time.
for sure feels like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like by the end of any issue, there's like not anything that like says like, oh yeah, like they wrapped that bit up.
Yeah, nothing's wrapped in like a neat little bow.
Yeah,
If you want to know what happens, you have
you
to
have to
keep
go to
going.
the next issue.
Yeah. And having read the whole first half of the story, the first 54 issues, it's that way consistently. Like, even when that break happened, the reason why that break hurt so much and that hiatus felt so long is because it ended on such a huge cliffhanger.
Yeah,
Because it wasn't meant to wrap anything up for a break. It was just, this is where we're stopping
This
for
is
the
where we're
moment.
done. Yeah,
And so it's kind of like, in a way, unsatisfying to just read this first volume and only that. Like, I had to kind of keep myself from reading forward again.
oh yeah.
And mainly just because I didn't want to go on the tangents about, further
What happened?
stuff.
Yeah,
But it
To keep
was
the
really hard.
to keep the integrity alive.
Yeah, and I'm nothing if not honest and about integrity. So kind of going into why the story is structured this way, the reason the story exists, even as we said, it's about family, and it's specifically for Brian K. Vaughan and dealing with his family. And I guess by that I mean, when this was originally published back in 2012, when he was writing it before that, he was about to have his first kid, I think.
Yeah, I actually and this is gonna surprise everybody. I actually like read a little bit about it. And it said this book is his like somewhat of a journal for him.
Mm-hmm.
He's like when I write things, as most writers do, I draw from personal experience. And when I started this book, I was like, this is gonna be a book drawn from what I am currently going through, how I put my thoughts and feelings down on a page.
You're absolutely right, Higgins. In fact, I've got a quote from an interview from way back when where he kind of details that even more. If you feel so interested as to hear it,
I would love to hear it.
Okay, so basically, Brian K. Vaughan says this, and I quote: "This story is, as many stories that I write, is some kind of cheap therapy for me, where I'm struggling with some issues going on with myself. In the case of Saga, I wanted to tell a story that details all the terror and joy and excitement of becoming a parent for the first time, and wanted to tell others in a way where their eyes don't just glaze over at the mention of someone else's kids."
And I think like the part that like makes it not like, oh, we're fawning over like the fact that someone had a child is that it's narrated by the child.
Yes, from the future, yeah.
Yeah. And so like we're getting, it's almost her journal versus his journal, and they might be coinciding. It's basically his journal told from the point of view of the child that he has created in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I don't know, that sounds like art to me. I don't know about you. It sounds like art.
It's beautiful stuff, Higgins. I love every bit of it. Yeah, this story, as far as comics go, if someone's going to recommend a comic to you and they kind of get in a sense of, okay, you've read all your basics, you've gone into superhero comics at this point, you've maybe even heard of an Image, and you want to check out something unique, I would assume for most people this is going to be in their top 3 lists.
This is like, besides like Sandman, this is like one of the only books that I would suggest to anybody that's like, I don't read comics. Comics are dumb.
Mm-hmm.
These are for children. I would never hand this book to a child.
No, I would never hand it to a child. I wouldn't hand it to just anybody. Like if you came to me and you're like, hey, I'm thinking about maybe getting into comics. I want to read something interesting. I would want to recommend this to you, but I also know that this particular story can be a lot. And I think that has to do with the setting of it. It's high sci-fi fantasy to its core, and it doesn't apologize for any of that. And also, it doesn't expect you to want it to hold your hand and kind of, like a lot of the stuff that happens in the story, I still don't even completely understand just because I'm not meant to. Brian K. Vaughan does this a lot with his comics. He also did it in Paper Girls, which I was going to talk about a little later in our other segments.
Whoa, spoilers.
I know. But when he has a character come in that in the story speaks a different language that no one else knows, you're not going to know what they're saying either.
Know what they're saying.
The only way you're going to get anything about it is from the context of the art and what's happening, and then maybe there's a character who does speak your language you can understand.
They might translate it for you.
Yeah, roughly translate it. So there's definitely a lot of that in this, and there's this, like, the concept of this book is basically, a while back there was an intergalactic war started between this planet and the inhabitants of its native moon, and there's a lot of cool kind of political stuff that deals with how that war spreads out throughout the rest of the galaxy. Basically,
there's like an army, and then like also like basically magic users that are like the native people of this moon.
Yes, and because that moon is native to the planet, I think the planet's called Wreath, if I remember right.
Yeah, Wreath sounds right.
Or the moon's that, I don't really remember. But the point is,
or Cleve's where they're at.
Yes, Cleve's the main planet. But
Let's
basically,
not confuse people.
I'm confused right now. But basically, the reason why this war has been spreading out throughout the galaxy is they can't fight each other on their home planet and home moon, because if one destroys the other, it throws off the balance of the entire like orbital system. And so they have to
know that.
Yeah, so they have to outsource their soldiers to all these planets that have been devastated for years because of this pointless fighting. And they don't go into really kind of why this war started, at least not into big detail. I don't think that they'll ever go into it. I think that we've just kind of it works a lot like Star Wars worked when it originally came out. And honestly, I think this is the best Star Wars-esque thing done right since Star Wars, as far as like just you get this sense of awe and wonder and curiosity when finding out anything new about the world that Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples have set up. When Star Wars first started in the 70s, it's episode 4 to us now, but that was the only thing to have ever come out for Star Wars. And so it just thrust you into this point of the story where, okay, the fall of the Republic has already happened. We're not going to really go into that. We're just jumping in right here, and you can experience it this way. And it still totally works, and that's why Star Wars is one of the biggest franchises of all time. I think,
like one of the things is like what's so cool about it being told from the point of view of like this child being thrust into the universe. We're that child. We're seeing the story unfold as she's being created, basically.
mm-hmm.
And so that's her whole world. She doesn't know why this war started. She doesn't know why these people hate these people. All she knows is that her family loves her.
Yes, and I think that just like Star Wars, I think what makes you kind of stick with these kinds of stories when it has so much lore to it already, and it's just expecting you to kind of piece it together yourself through context. And as the story goes, we'll give you a little bit more information, but you mostly just need to kind of figure it out yourself. A lot of people would get sick of that or not want to deal with it because it is a lot. But the reason that you keep coming back to it and the reason you love it so much is because the main crux of the story is something so simple and small. And in this case, it's just this Romeo and Juliet story where these two people from each of the moon and the
each
planet,
faction, basically,
they fell in love and then they ran off and they have a kid now. That's where we open up on this story. And
horns
now
and wings.
Horns and wings. It's not allowed, but it's happening. And you're just worried about, you don't care about the war. It's not what's important to you in the story. It's, I hope these people are going to be okay, and I hope they get to raise their daughter, because sure, they might have crooked past and may have done some things wrong, but they seem like good people, and I want them to be safe and happy.
We just want to see this kid grow up. We just want to, like, never in my life have I ever wanted to see a kid grow up more than I've, like, looked at this. Most of the time in any of, like, the other things where I've seen where there's, like, a child growing up, they usually suck. This kid is, like, you just want to save him. There's only one other thing that I would include in that, and I'm not even going to talk about it.
Not at all?
Oh, it's Plague's Tale Innocence. That's the only kid I've ever wanted to save in my entire life.
I do love that kid. He's coming back soon.
Yeah.
Can't wait. Yes, I completely agree. You do kind of, you feel for these characters just as soon as the story starts. And it's so weird because the kid has wings and horns, and there's like some of the species in this that exist are just so strange and don't seem like they should all be in the same story. Like you have this race of people who their heads are TVs, and on top of that,
they're the royal family, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just like a wild thing.
It's just nonsense.
I almost brought like a cardboard box with my like the little face cut out, and I was gonna put it as our picture, but like honestly, that just sounded like too much work, folks.
That's a lot of time for you to take out of your day. Yeah. And you knew we had to podcast.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with you not doing that. But yeah, you have weird TV head people. You have this girl with wings and horns, and then you also have
like an immense amount of like bounty hunters that just have their own agendas that I don't know anything about. I've only read 26 issues, so
I don't think you really find much out. Like I think everything you need to know about the freelancers and kind of
all
their deal
their names
is
start with the.
Yes, there is that. Their titles that I guess they just go by now, but that's the thing is you don't find out everything, like every detail, but you don't need to, because you still know enough to continue with the main story. And I think that's what makes this book so immersive, is that's not how it would work in the real world anyway. You're not supposed to know every little detail of everything going on in the world around you. It's just what's in front of you and kind of what you can piece together yourself, and you just work with that. And I think that, like you said, the character of Hazel, the baby.
Oh yeah, that's her name. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, we know that she's narrating to us in this book from the future, so we know she at least grows up long enough to learn how to talk, and she's obviously, she knows what's happening before we do because she's telling a story. But in the moment of these kind of, I guess, flashbacks, she's your point of view. Like you're just seeing everything for the first time like she is, and you're kind of forming your own opinions about how these characters are, and then you question like, okay, well, who's good and who's bad? And I think that's, if you're gonna do a story like this where it just has so much kind of fantasy and sci-fi elements and different species and planets, and they all look weird and unique, you got to keep it grounded in some way. And I think that on just these kind of personal stories and the emotions that come with them is what keeps you grounded and is what keeps you reading. And it's amazing writing.
You basically find out something on maybe not the panel, but like from page to page, you're literally finding something new out 90% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's this person that's speaking this different language. Why do they have magic? Here's this person that has a robot TV head. What is their deal? And why are they the royal family? And why do they hang out with the people that have wings? How do they even like come to be together?
Yeah.
Why do they have TV heads? Why do they have sex? Why does the robot TV head guy have a wiener?
Why isn't the wiener shaped like a TV?
Yeah, exactly. I've seen his wiener. There's butts, wieners, and boobs in here, folks. It's a sexy book.
It is very sexy, and while I'm sure Brian K. Vaughan describes those sexy scenes in great detail, Fiona Staples is the real hero when it comes to getting that across on the page. Maybe one of the best artists I've ever seen. This is really all I know that she's done.
This is by and far one of the best art I've seen on a comic book.
It has to, I guess, just come back again to that idea of there's nothing like this. She is counted as co-creator, and I kind of read a little bit into that, and they had never actually formally met until Brian K. Vaughan was writing the story and was looking for an artist. I think he had seen some of her artwork. They were introduced by a guy, his name is Steve Niles. He was kind of the mutual friend of both. I think Fiona Staples had worked on a book with him called Mystery Society, and she had also worked on another story called Done to Death. That was like her first comic series, like ongoing series she had worked on, but she was very new, and she also, her art's unique compared to a lot of the other people we've talked about in the past because she does most, if not all of it, digitally.
It looks digitally made, and that's what I was going to say, like almost like it looks similar to what we've seen out of Michael's book. Like there's brushstrokes that could only be created on a computer and stuff like that. A lot of the time you see like a lot of darks, and we're seeing a lot of like blacker blacks and like colors and stuff like that. But like the outer image of something, like it looks like it's just been like kind of drawn with like a fade design on a computer or something like that.
It's very just kind of like a lot of artists, I guess, kind of the polar opposite of a book we've kind of done before. You think of someone like Alex Ross. He's the guy who does all the painting and stuff, and he sketches and models. This is more of, it's almost like a contained chaos for me, where basically she describes her process as in a few different ways, but the gist of it from what I got is basically she kind of does her rough outlines and everything on like a drawing tablet or whatever, and then she'll throw it into a program like Photoshop and then use that to color the backgrounds. And the reason she does it this way is to give it that kind of digital, clean look in a way to kind of give it reminiscence of video games and Japanese animation. That's where a lot of her inspiration comes from. I see that in this 100%. I also agree with kind of what you had talked about in Michael's book, the illustrations that Ashley had done, very similar in that style.
Yeah.
And it really works. And I think when you also have, talking about this story in particular with this art, there's a lot of different planets and colors and different aliens. I don't have a problem making anything out in this book from anything that it's in front or behind of.
A lot of the time in comics, you're like I can't 100% see one way or the other. You know 100% what's happening every time that you see a frame, basically. Like there's people with magic swords, there's people with ray guns, there's literally everything. Like this book encapsulates like sci-fi fantasy to its fullest extent, and she doesn't make it hard to see that.
And I think the fun of this art really comes from the designs of the characters, and she apparently helped decide
the
where
horns and the wings and all that.
She did all, as far as I'm aware, she did all the character designs of every main character and alien species. But also because of that, and also her general kind of approach to drawing, it determined the the looks of these planets and also their culture. A big part of this first volume is the main characters. We haven't really mentioned them by name, but the parents
Marco
of
and
Alana.
Hey, we both said the words.
We both did something today, and I'm proud of both of us, and I always will be. But yes, Marco and Alana, the premise of this first volume is they have the child Hazel, and they're on the run, and they're on this planet where they are just stuck. Well, they get a map, and it basically says like, oh, there's this rocket ship forest that you can go to get a ship off this planet.
Rad as hell.
Yeah, and it's when you get to the end of the story, and they find that rocket ship in the rocket ship forest, it's a rocket ship made out of wood. It's a tree that can fly into space. And the reason that even happened is because Fiona Staples prefers to draw kind of more organic,
trees and stuff
synthetic
like that.
stuff,
Okay.
as opposed to kind of like mechs and gears and stuff like that. So, and I think that's just so much for the better because there's already magic and other fantasy elements, and it's just a nice blend of sci-fi and fantasy.
Well,
it's not
it makes
boring.
sense. They're doing magic. Like, why wouldn't a tree be able to be a rocket ship?
Yes.
Like, why wouldn't a planet have an ability to grow rocket ships, basically? And I like the same thing, like as we were talking about, where like they're literally just thrusting us into this world. It's like I have no idea what happens on other planets. Why wouldn't a rocket ship just grow?
Yeah. You get to have a lot of fun reading it because it takes ideas you're familiar with, like we all know what a rocket ship is, but we also expect a rocket ship to be a certain thing and look a certain way, and this just takes the core idea and does its own thing in the world that it's set in, and that just makes it so much more fun to read and just so much easier to separate it from any other story you've ever read before. A big part of Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples coming up with this story, they didn't want this to be something that could be other than a comic. The idea was to always have this just be this comic.
Yeah, because someone could really mess this up in a TV show.
Big time. See, the thing is, a TV show, I think, is the only way you could maybe get it done.
You could never do a movie.
It would, yeah, like just from the scale of the story alone, but also like it would take an astronomical budget to make anything on TV look as good as this stuff should. Yeah. And they've done Brian K. Vaughan stuff on TV, since this story came out.
Talk about it.
I'll talk about it. We've actually maybe talked about one already because
Excuse me.
You're all right. You're all right. Don't do it again. But we've talked about Why the Last Man. When that show came out, it's already canceled, but he wrote that story too. And I'll talk about another show that is based off of another Brian K. Vaughan book. If they were to do this story, if they were to adapt it, it'd be very, very difficult to make. And honestly, I don't think it would come across as enjoyable. I think that if you want to read the story, and you should want to read the story, the best and only way you should do it is by reading the source material.
Yeah, just look at the goddamn pictures and read the words. Like, you don't have that much going on in your day.
I mean, you're listening to us, so you clearly don't have much going on.
Like, just turn the goddamn podcast off now and just read the book.
And then come back and finish the podcast.
I'm looking at you, Aaron.
She didn't make it this far. Let's not kid ourselves.
Sorry,
Andy.
Aaron.
Yeah, Andy. He's probably listening to it while he's teaching classes right now.
Can we talk about how horny this book is? I love seeing, like, literally boobs and wieners and butts on every single character.
And you can quote him on that.
I'm so mad that I was turned on by a person with a TV head. I didn't do anything about it, but I really thought about it.
I really enjoyed the TV head alien race. They're probably my favorite out of all of them, just because. How does that work?
And the part that like gets like that really cracks me up about them is that like every now and again they like have a like a thought or a feeling, and then like just a random image pops up on their like TV screen.
And it seems to be involuntary.
Yeah, like they can't control it.
And what I really enjoy about that element of them is they are this race of royals, and so they're supposed to come across as regal and elegant and be a shining example for the rest of the galaxy. They're all just kind of fuckwits and idiots, it seems, for the most part. Like the main one we follow around, I think his name's Prince Robot the Fourth. He seems to have his shit under control, but every now and again he slips up. Like when he's tracking down Alana, he figures out that she likes these sexy time books, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And he also likes them.
yeah.
And it's really funny. And also, every character in this has so much heart to him, and you can't really put one in a box as far as like, oh, this one's the funny one, or oh, this one's the super serious one. Alana is kind of out of her and Marco, she's kind of the goofball. She's got a dirty mouth, and she likes her sexy time books, and also doesn't come across as very intelligent, but she has this internal, like, motherly instinct that just kicks in as soon as Hazel's born. And also, she's not an idiot when it comes to kind of being street smart, because Marco's going through a thing where he used to fight for his race in the war, and he apparently was really good at it, and something changed in him to make him renounce violence. And Alana knows that they're being chased by the entire galaxy, and she's not going to let her husband and her newborn daughter die on her watch without a fight, because there's a really funny scene that I remember where basically Marco has this awesome magical sword, and he just snaps it in half because he's like, oh, I'm giving up violence. We don't need this.
Well, he had just like killed like 5 people after he renounced violence.
Yeah.
So like he was like, okay, if I have this, I'm not going to be able to renounce violence.
Yeah, and so he'll snap it in half, and Alana and another character are talking about it. It's just like, wow, that was really, really brave and honorable. And they're like, yep. And the character turns to Alana, and she's like, you're not gonna like get rid of your gun though, right? And she goes, absolutely not. So she knows that while that might be a great thing to kind of pursue this life of nonviolence, and I want to be someone my daughter can look up to, that's great. But also, they're
I do
on
have
the run.
to like protect. Yeah.
So it's just a lot of stuff like that where all these characters, while they're all different alien races and they're traveling planets to planets and tree rocket ships, this is a very relatable story for anyone reading it. There's something in this that everybody can kind of take from and see in themselves.
Do you want to talk about the freelancers? Because like that's a whole spicy subject that I would love to talk about.
It's very spicy. Also, the freelancer side of stuff has a bit more kind of emotional weight than the Marco and Alana and Hazel stuff at times, I think.
You're like, okay, these are just some killers, and
for the most part, they come across as that.
They get approached for jobs, basically, and they're heartless killers, and they don't go by their own names, so you're like, okay, we don't have to worry about these characters. But we get introduced to, like, the best character in the story.
Yeah.
Will you say it real quick?
The Will?
No.
Oh, Lion Cat?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
All right, here we are. The best character in the whole story, the Lion Cat.
Yes, yeah, I love Lion. I think everybody loves Lion Cat. There's not if you've read any of this book, even if you stopped, you at least took that from it.
Yeah.
So the freelancers are kind of this mystery for the rest of the galaxy, which is probably why we don't know a ton about kind of how they work. We know that they have agents that help get them jobs, and also they're kind of the scourge of the galaxy. But if you need something done and you want someone to just make some tough decisions, you don't get much better than these guys. The main one we focus on is the Will. He has a great introduction as well. He just kind of shows up in this cave and is attacked by this giant alien golem type thing and kills it with very little effort, it seems.
I think, yeah, no, he for sure takes it down. And I've only read 26 issues.
Mm-hmm.
To that point, he's my favorite character.
He gets even better than he is in because I remember there's a certain kind of time skip that happens, and then you catch up with him later, and his entire character has changed based on the previous issues. Like, yeah. But what I like about the freelancers, specifically the character of the Will, is we see, and you see it in his first volume, he gets little adventures himself, and he's not the worst guy, but also
he has
very bad man.
he's your murderer. He definitely kills people. He has no regrets about killing people. He does that for money. But also, we come to this planet, I don't know, 2 or 3 issues in, and he sees this girl that's like being sold into sex trafficking, and he's like, well, fuck this, I'm gonna kill everybody on this planet.
Like a lot of these kind of bounty hunter types in
They have
various
their
media,
they have
a line.
morals. Yeah, they have their morals.
Yeah, I mean, and it's their own kind of twisted reasoning of just like, okay, you can pretty much do anything. Like, you can kill for money, and that's fine, but you leave the kid out of it as far as the weird sex planet goes.
Yeah, exactly.
And
we didn't even talk about that, but that's in there, guys. There's a weird sex planet. And
I love the sex planet.
It's a really good chapter.
It is a really good chapter, and again, just another great kind of flexing of Fiona Staples' art muscles. Like, every time you go to a different planet in this book, it's truly a different experience. Like, just the tone, the energy, the vibes, like it's all, the colors are all different. Like, it's crazy. With the Will, I think what makes him so kind of scary is he is just kind of this straight-faced, like, not much emotion there, but also he seems very unstable, where he's got a crush on one of the other freelancers in this book.
Who's a naked spider lady?
With no arms, but 8 arms for legs?
8 legs.
Yeah. Each one can hold a gun. That's very, very useful in the freelancing world, I imagine.
Just like the most confusing
and
erection in the world, right?
For both you and the Will, yes. But up to this point, or before we see him, we'd seen all this weird stuff. And then when he shows up in that cave, he just looks like a dude like you or me.
Yeah.
Probably more so me, because I'm going to be bald like him in at least the next year or two. But he just looks like a guy. And so you're like, oh, who's this dude? And then you see kind of what he can do.
5 seconds, basically.
You see what he can do as far as his skills. So that already kind of tells you, like, oh, okay, never mind. This guy is as good as they say. But then you get to see more of his personality, and just kind of anything seems like it could set him off. Yes, he has his own rules and lines that he doesn't cross. But it also seems like it's just kind of a spur of the moment decision on his part a lot of times. Like, it's just anything could kind of get this guy on your bad side, and you definitely don't want that to happen. And also he has this moments where, oh, he really liked that spider lady, and she broke his heart, and now he just wants to just go cry about it. Like, it's very weird and very entertaining to read about.
And it's like the same thing we've been talking about this entire time. We're jumping into this world that we know nothing about.
Mm-hmm.
And then literally, like, every panel can be a new thing that we see.
It adds to everything that you're reading as you go, yeah.
And absolutely none of it is a throwaway.
Mm-mm.
Like, everything comes back, it seems like.
And it will, and that's the thing, is this first volume, just kind of knowing the story up to the point I've read, a lot of these kind of setups that happen in the first 6 issues, you forgot because they don't pay off until like issue 50. Yeah. But when it does, it's still so satisfying. It still hits home, yeah. Yeah, and just like any big space romp, when you're jumping around from one group of characters on this planet to another group of characters on this planet, their stories are all connected, and a thing could happen to this group on this planet, and it will affect the story of, say, a character like the Will, but he doesn't even know that's happening yet. And when he does find out, you go, oh, when's this gonna, like, this is gonna come back into play, surely.
Yeah, it's gonna surely haunt him, or not haunt him, or he's gonna be an even bigger part of the story. Like, who knows?
And you have other great writers that have managed to do the same feat of, like, you've been doing this since X amount of time, and there's still these little, like, nuggets from early on that pay off. Like, people love the manga One Piece because we're on chapter 1,000 whatever, and a character will show up that was maybe mentioned back in chapter 20. And if you're a true fan and you've retained all that knowledge, you're like, wow, I just thought that was like a throwaway thing. And that's not the case here. It's not the case with those stories that we were talking about. Like, it's really well thought out, and it's also not cheap, because a lot of times with stories that go that long, they can kind of fall into this, like, oh, well, I'm just reading this because I want to find out the thing. I'm not even invested. There's not a single point of the story that I lose interest.
I've 100% cared about even the characters that I like absolutely hate, I care about where their story ends up.
You want to see where it goes and how it affects the stories of the characters you do like, because you know everything's going to come to a head. And
I just know this robot, the Fourth's going to be a good guy eventually.
he goes through some stuff, Higgins. Don't even worry about
I've
that.
only seen 26 issues, so
Yeah.
and it's been a long time, so I don't even completely remember.
Mm-hmm. And I think what will always keep me coming back to this until Brian K. Vaughan finishes and I read issue 108,
108
is the narration is the thing that is just like, okay, like this gets up to a certain point. Where's it going to meet? Like, how old is this version of Hazel that's narrating? How old is she going to be? And also, what happens to her? And I didn't realize until rereading this first volume for the first time in a long time, she already kind of hints at some stuff that's going to go down. And she mentions, I think there's like a line basically where her parents gave her a chance to grow up and live in this world. Yeah. And while she doesn't go on to become some great savior or some destined for greatness child, but she gets to grow up. And what does that mean? Like, what happens to not just her character, but all these characters that are being introduced to us for the first time? And so, yeah, I mean, it's just an easy to come back to book because it's great.
It's okay. I'm just gonna. It's a spoiler for the end of the episode. Me and Snoop are both gonna say 10 out of 10. This is our favorite book. This is our favorite comic. There's nothing before or after that we're gonna say is better until someone writes something else.
I really like Sandman, but it would be tied with this, I think.
Sandman feels it, but this is maybe one of two, like 10 out of 10 books.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're talking comics, like if someone was like, what do you love about, why do you love comics so much? What is it about that medium that just does it for you? I would say this is my first example. Like it just
like literally, if you need something to read and you want us to tell you something, I would show you this, unless you're a fucking prude, because like
it is definitely,
there's boobs, there's butts, there's nipples, like penises, like literally like everything. This is for adult readers. And what I think the bad rap of comics is that this is for kids. And this is the one. This is the one book that tells you that this isn't a medium for children always.
But the thing is too, like if you did, which you wouldn't, because that's a big part of the story. Say you were to take out or censor a lot of this art, you wouldn't want to do that. Fine. The crux of the story though works for anyone. Honestly, like you can get something out of this.
Yeah,
and I think it'll always be remembered as a story like that just works 100% of the way. And
I can't wait. I can't wait to read 7 through 12.
Well, now that we've talked about this first volume, I am going to, because I have at least the first half of this story collected already. I'm going to go and read through all of it, and I'll talk about the second volume whenever we do that. But like, I didn't want to put this down.
No, I don't want to put it down either. I already own like the second and third volume at my house.
Nice.
I don't have the big book, but because I don't like book, well, I don't like holding the big book in my hands.
You want me to come over to your house and hold it for you?
I got small hands.
I can hold it for you.
All right.
Okay. Good.
I have a hammock. We can sit there together.
Can you get me a hammock that I can swing in next to your hammock?
As long as you hold it next to it.
Okay. Good. Deal.
The only other comic part of this that I want to talk about is Isabel, the ghost. She's great. That's all I got to talk about.
I like Isabel's character a lot.
There's a ghost character. She's one of the best characters in the book. She helps raise Hazel, and that's it. Honestly,
yeah, she
looks really cool.
She's a weird ghost girl with half a body.
She's a weird ghost girl where her bottom half is gone. She's red, and it looks great on the page.
Yeah, honestly, like we talked about a lot about the sexy stuff and all the butts, boobs, and nipples and other things that you said. All important stuff to mention. But if I was not gonna say like your kid shouldn't read this, I would think first probably about the violence in this book.
Oh, it is super violent. People are getting dismembered and all the sorts.
Yeah, guts hanging out. it's nothing necessarily grotesque, but it's definitely not something you'd want to show to a child, and not to someone who people have a weird thing about that kind of stuff. And I get
Especially
that.
if you're a goddamn prude.
Well, I hope for your sake that you're not, and that you want to read the story. As Higgins said, our rating unanimously 10
It's
out
a
of
10
10.
out of 10. I don't know how to like say anything else. This is gonna be our one episode where we say 10 out of 10, unless we read The Sandman. And like whenever we read Sandman, just know that we're gonna say 10 out of 10.
Absolutely.
This is
Yeah.
gonna be our one rating that is not like just a throwaway whose line is it anyway answer. You need to read the if you're listening to our podcast, read this comic book.
Do it right now. And
Yeah,
then
like
come back.
literally come back. I'm sorry you listened to us say all that stuff, but I honestly don't think we ruined anything for you.
I regret nothing, for
Yeah.
the record. Yeah. You know what you did listening to this, and I know what I did telling you about it. And I'm happy for both of those things.
I think this is our best episode. Sorry guys. You've listened to the best. I'm sorry. We're going to read like a lot of shitty stuff, but now me and Snoop are going to eat the olive
Oh, okay.
to commemorate the podcast.
Because I don't
It's
know
going to
if
be terrible. I don't know if I like olives.
I know.
I don't know if I like olives mixed with vodka, but we're gonna do it because we're professionals.
You put vodka in this?
No, I'm just gin.
Okay.
Gin.
about
Sorry.
to say.
Sorry, folks.
Okay.
Gin.
Cheers. Gin. Oh, it's salty.
Salty as hell.
Oh my god.
There's vodka in there too.
Is there vodka in this or not?
Gin. Sorry.
Okay, good. God, that's salty.
That's fine. I don't like black olives, but
Okay.
that green olive was good.
Yeah, green's better than black. The olives, I mean. And that's
really
the only
glad-
commentary on color I'll have.
I'm really glad I did that.
Higgins, I would be glad if you helped us jump into another segment since we're done.
Banana. Readings for squares.
Are we doing that one first?
Yeah, I don't care.
Did you read the Spider-Man annual that we talked about?
No, I didn't do that.
Did
I'll
you
do
come
it
up with a
next
theme
time.
song?
No. No, I didn't come up with anything.
You really let me down.
Banana. Rings for squares.
Okay.
No, I honestly forgot that I said I was gonna do that. Snoop's gonna text me in the next couple weeks to remind me to do that,
All right, so you want to wait and talk about it at a different
and
time?
then I'll do it at a different time. Because
Okay.
honestly, this comic's too important to
sully with
Spider-Man.
wow, harsh words. So yeah, read the Spider-Man life story annual. Only one, just one. So you can read that and we can talk about it a
Yeah,
little.
no, it'll be good.
Or we may never talk about it. We'll see. Only time will tell, really. But for right now, we're going to do that segment that Higgins likes to do and I like to do, Readings for Squares. That is a segment where Higgins and I will talk about a thing that we've watched or gamed or done that doesn't involve a book and reading.
I would love to hear what you're doing because I know you have
God, I've got something for
you
you.
got something great for me.
I want to stay on brand.
Specifically Brian K. Vaughan, because I really want to watch this goddamn show, but I knew I kind of wanted you to tell me about it before I started it. if
I'd
I'm
love
being
to.
honest.
Honestly, I won't spoil much of anything here. So, yes, Brian K. Vaughan, we talked about him just now. Great guy, by all accounts. And he writes a lot of great stories. One that he's written is called Paper Girls. The premise of that is basically 4 newspaper girls, back when, girls did that. Boys can do it too.
The like bicycle thing.
Yeah,
I've
they-
read a lot of the comics, so
They get on a bicycle and they throw
but
newspapers
that's
at
not
your
what
door.
we do here.
And you think, man, that'd be really boring. And guess what? It probably would be. But luckily,
Aliens.
this involves weird time travel and girls going to the future to meet their future selves and all different kinds of stuff. Now, the book itself, we might cover one day. It's a very strange book.
Honestly, if I knew this show was coming out, we would have read this month.
I
but-
thought you did know. That's why you wanted to do Saga. But apparently you didn't because you texted me that. So, yes, Amazon Prime came out with a live-action adaptation of the Paper Girl story. And they put all of the episodes out. Typically, it's not like a great sign these
6?
days. 8.
8?
Mhm.
That's a good number.
It's a pretty solid number. So I've watched the first 4, and
It's
I think I like it.
okay.
Not
cool.
I think I like it. I think it's good, and I like it.
It's worth watching. then.
Yes. So I got a few notes about specifically kind of why I like it. It's by no means perfect. I think that this is a lot more manageable than the actual comic it's based off of. I didn't finish Paper Girls. It was a really good story that it came out
Well, it's
monthly.
not done.
No,
Is
it's
it done
done.
yet?
It's
Okay,
done.
I haven't read it either.
Yeah,
then.
it's I've got them all over there actually. I just haven't
It was
read them.
on a hiatus the last time I stopped reading it.
I think it ended up being like 30-ish issues, but
Perfect.
the problem with Paper Girls was it was so strange and weird, and because it came out monthly, you'd forget what happened in the
Yeah.
prior issue, or you would just jump into this, like this next issue you're reading would just be a whole new thing, and you were confused because you're like, did I miss an issue? Like, it was just all over the place. I imagine it came together at the very end once you just kind of, I think it would be a really good one to read in just a binge, basically. But with the show, I remembered the premise. Again, just girls from 1988 get involved with weird time travel shenanigans. That's all you need to know. A lot kind of better delivery this way, I think. I think because you get to focus more on the character development of each of the four girls. If it catches on, I don't know if it will, but if it catches on, this could be Amazon's Stranger Things, which is, I assume, what they were going for.
Did it fit the characters that we saw on the comic book? Because I saw like screen captures and I was like, they look similar.
Pretty accurate, I think. Yeah, so you have like I said, you had the four main girls. So I'm gonna butcher some name pronunciations, but here I go.
I love that.
Great. All right. Well, then you'll love to hear that Riley Lai Nillette plays Erin Ting, Sophia Rosinski as Mac Coyle, Cameron Jones as Tiff Quilkin, and then Finn Straza as KJ Brandman. And they got Ali Wong as the older version of Erin in this, because again, time travel.
I love that.
I know, I like it
Ali
too.
Wong.
So it starts out kind of normal, you know. It's just like Erin's the new paper girl, and she meets the other three that have been doing it for a while. I enjoy each of these girls and their performances. I think that they all bring enough kind of something different to each character. I think my least favorite would probably be the character of Mac, but I don't see that as a problem with Sophia's performance. I think it's just, you remember John Connor from Terminator 2?
He's just like mad about everything.
Yeah, so she looks and acts like John Connor from Terminator
Okay.
2. And it's just very odd, but this show has a lot of potential to it, I think. I think that it doesn't start out great, but
Yeah.
it has enough, like I said, these four girls, they keep you kind of engaged, and you like getting to know a little bit more of them. And it is very much like Saga, where you're just jumping in on like a random day of these girls' lives, and it happens to be the day that they all meet Erin, the new girl, and then immediately get thrust into the whole time travel thing. And it's that, like, what is happening? I barely know these girls, and we're not necessarily friends. They do a really good job of that in the beginning, like first 2 or 3 episodes, I think, of basically going, we under normal circumstances would not hang out, but if we're going to get out of this alive, we have to kind of get to know each other and be there for each other. And I think that's what makes it really good for me, is there's a lot of believable interactions and also a lot of uncomfortable interactions. I think because they don't really know each other, when we get to learn more about each of these girls, it's the same time that one of the girls, like the other girls, is learning about a character. And there's a lot of kind of anger and frustration and sadness with each of these girls and their backgrounds. And they're kind of having to comfort each other and cheer each other up and just support each other. And I really like those interactions. And it doesn't stop there. It also kind of extends to the support characters that you meet after the time travel stuff kicks in. Like the older Erin, played by Ali Wong, she has a lot of kind of good talks with her younger self. Like there's a moment where they're in older Erin's house and they've all freaked out because it's just like, that's you're me and I'm you.
me and
Yeah,
I'm you,
like
yeah.
they do all that. That's not really that interesting because we've seen that before. But then they just have this very quaint, quiet moment where they're just sitting on a bed with each other, just kind of talking. And
Yeah.
you're learning, how did this older version of Erin kind of become who she is? And Erin, the younger version, kind of learns to accept that because she realizes, oh, this isn't the same me because this me has gone through some things that I can't even begin to understand, and I should be more kind of considerate about that. So just really good stuff there, I think. I think that's where the effects are pretty decent, but again, it's just those character interactions that really make it shine.
What's nice is they already have a. Then I feel like that's what hurts a lot of like comic book to like show or movie stories is they don't have like a full story yet.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it probably helps that Paper Girls has ended.
Yeah,
and they know where they're going.
You can choose kind of what you need to omit or tweak, and you can set your pacing up. I think the pacing of this is pretty strong. I don't think it's necessarily perfect. Like I'm about halfway through, and the ending of the fourth episode just seems like there should be one more episode left. Basically,
okay.
I won't say why, but like there's a moment where this thing shows up, and you're like, that seems like a finale, like a lead into a finale, but it's only halfway through. So we'll see if they kind of keep that momentum going in a good way. But like really solid. I don't know what the plans are for like, is there going to be a second season or will they get a second season? But a really good attempt at something really weird from memory. There are things I don't like. My biggest gripe is because these girls are from the 80s and they've time traveled to the future. There's a lot of just like, what do you mean this is happening now? Like, your phone doesn't have a cord attached to it?
A Back to the Future type stuff.
Yeah, it's just like, okay.
Yeah, we get it. You're in the future.
I've got a quote between two characters here I wrote down because it's just kind of how we're doing this. One character says, "Relax, we're gonna go on the internet and find her," and then the second character takes a pause and then just goes, "What's the internet?" Okay,
we get it.
We know what the internet is. It's fine. So yeah, but other than that, like pretty good.
I'll for sure. The only thing I'll have to say is, should I read it before I watch it?
I don't think so. I think, because again, I stopped, so I maybe only made it halfway through, and I don't even remember what I read other than the initial premise. That's all you need.
Okay.
I think you'd be better off just watching it if you want to watch it.
All right.
So yeah. Also, just do a side-by-side comparison of that girl and then John Connor from Terminator 2.
All right.
Same haircut, same everything. Just very strange.
I will do that. I want to watch that movie. I want to watch that show. I'm gonna do that.
You should.
For my thing, I think I've watched a lot since we recorded last. Like, do you want a movie or a TV show?
Let's do a movie.
All right, a movie.
Yeah.
Okay, I watched the Nick Cage movie.
Oh,
I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't. The unbearable
talent of like
of greatness or
of
something.
Greatness or something like that, where he acts as himself. God, a heck of a movie. It's one of the best comedies / like whatevers that I've seen in a good amount of time. Basically, like, you have Nick Cage as himself, air quotes, where he's like this actor that like can't keep making money to afford like his lifestyle, which is like
it's just Nick Cage,
yes, but like in a movie version of himself almost, and like. I just act to act. Like, I don't act to make a living. Like, acting is my life.
It's my soul. It's who
and,
I am.
Like, he's basically, like, going broke. And so this guy, like, Pedro Pascal, gets him to come to his birthday party. And he's like, this is the only money I can make. His agent's like, you have to do this. Otherwise, you're going to be broke.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes in there, and they become best friends. And it's just, like, an absolute journey.
But Pedro Pascal isn't himself, though, right?
No.
Okay.
And Nick Cage isn't even really himself.
He's just a guy named Nick.
Well, no, he's still Nick Cage, but he's like a movie version of Nick Cage in that scenario.
I always thought that was just what Nick Cage is.
No, and it might be, but like
I get what you're saying. Yeah,
it's for sure not a documentary style. They're doing like all sorts of crazy stuff. Nick Cage comes on this island where Pedro Pascal might or might not be a drug lord or something like that, and he's like working with the CIA to like try to bring him down. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of crazy stuff happens, and Nick Cage, basically Pedro Pascal's character is just like, God, I love Nick Cage. Like, I want to be best friends with him, and they end up being best friends, and very cool things happen, and it's very, very, very funny. Like much funnier than I expected it to be.
Okay.
And you should watch it if you got a chance.
How does one watch that movie?
I watched it on HBO, I think.
It's on HBO.
I think.
Huh.
Or Apple TV. I can't remember.
I have one of those, so I'll have to look and see if it's on the one
I
that I
can't
have.
remember.
Uh-huh.
It's there though, but if you have an opportunity to watch, it's worth like paying like $5 to $6 for. It's worth paying money for.
Mhm.
I also started watching Fargo, which is an old show.
The show Fargo.
Yeah. I've watched the movie before. The show's one of the best shows I've ever watched.
It's a great show. Yeah.
God,
Only-
like Martin Freeman, like Billy Bob Thornton, like literally stat cast. I mean, there's other things that I've watched, but
Yeah.
Severance, like watch Severance on Apple TV. I might talk about it next episode, but I don't want to go into it too much this time.
No, that's fine.
It's on Apple TV.
If we're just saying things that we've watched that other people should watch, I would recommend a movie I just watched. I think it's on HBO here in the US of A. It's called Belle.
Okay.
Really good. If you like not a musical, but a movie with musical numbers in it.
I hate musicals.
It's not a musical though. It's a movie with musical numbers.
Okay.
So it works, and it's an amazing, sad and beautiful movie. That apparently the main star is from TikTok. That's the world we're living in now, Higgins.
Hell yes.
She's great, honestly. Like, not just from a singing aspect, but just voice performance wise. It's did you ever watch like Wolf Children and The Boy and the Beast, any of those movies? Summer Wars?
I watched all the anime ones you're talking about.
Yeah, so it's the same guy that makes those movies.
Okay.
Very Summer Wars-esque, as far as if you've
Is
seen
it
that one.
animated?
Yeah, it's an anime.
Okay.
Very, very good though. Maybe check that out. Like I said, I think it's on HBO. As long as that's around, apparently that's changing next year.
Maybe we'll talk about it next episode.
And that Spider-Man annual, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. But for right now, I think that's a good point to end.
Yeah, we'll talk about our important stuff now. I'm going to sweep up for you guys. You can find us on the Twitter for me, Mike J. Higgins 93.
Mhm.
And you can find us on Instagram. I'm JSturm93, and Snoop is Snoop_Lynch. You're on Twitter too at that, technically?
Unless someone took it away from me, then
All right,
yes.
then
Yeah.
he's on that too. We also have an email. It's the comment, or just, I mess it up every time.
You really do.
Is it just, it's just Comixology Club
Yes. Yeah.
at gmail.com.
That's correct, yeah.
And you can find us there, and we would love an email. Like, I don't even think we've gotten one.
I haven't looked in a
recently.
while, but maybe we have.
Maybe we have, maybe we haven't. We would love to hear from you guys. We have plenty of comics we want to read, but if you guys say something, we'll read it first.
For sure. If you have a recommendation,
If
that
you
you'd
want
like
to talk to
cover.
us about what we've talked about, then we'll mention you in our podcast in a heartbeat,
Mhm.
because like we love it.
Mhm. We also love mentioning people that give us a rating or a review. You can do
Yeah.
that in a variety of ways. Spotify lets you put stars, I think.
Yeah, we get
iTunes?
only ratings on Spotify, and iTunes lets you give a rating and a review.
This is all good stuff. Yeah.
Our friends have done it. We've read all of them.
We've ran out of friends. So
There haven't been new ones.
there have not been new ones, but you could change that. You, whoever's listening right now to this. And if you do give us a rating, maybe let us know in an email, and we'll mention both that.
Yeah.
Now, Higgins, we would normally go after that, but we have to talk about what we're going to read next time.
Yeah, we're going to read a book we've read before in the past and that we really liked. It's by Mark Russell, and it's The Flintstones Volume 2.
That's right.
And I think it's the end of the Flintstones
as far as I'm
comic
aware,
book,
yeah.
as far as I'm aware.
Just
Maybe
2
we'll
volumes.
tell you we're wrong when we get there, but for now, just look for Flintstones Volume 2.
It's definitely Flintstones Volume 2, yes.
I just ordered it on Amazon while we were recording. So
Damn, Higgins.
I'm
Just
ready
always
for it.
working behind the scenes. I
I'm ready
respect
for
that.
it.
I respect the hustle and grind culture that you are so a
Yeah.
part of.
Exactly.
Very good. So yes, join me and Higgins to talk about that book next month. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope you enjoyed us. We hope you make this drink so you can crunch that olive just like we did. Yum, yum.
Yum, yum.
But until we see you again, I will say cheers, guys. That's what I say. Higgins would love to say one thing, though.
And I did shit.
You said you weren't going to call back to it.